All right, let us begin by taking a breath into the body. I have a fantastic, fantastic question today that I'm answering, a really powerful one. And there are actually 4 steps, 4 keys to what I'm about to share today. So, we're talking about gratitude, we're talking about love, we're talking about wholeness. And this begins by taking a breath. This begins by coming in to the body. This begins by allowing yourself to be here, to be now. So taking a deep inhale in, holding it a little bit at the top, exhaling out, and allowing yourself to be fully here in the now, in the present moment. So the question that I have received was absolutely phenomenal, and it was actually a comment in one of my earlier videos, and it was, hold on, let me get to it. I asked a person how is it that they're going to embody power in their life and, that strength, that courage, that abundance. And they said, I'm not sure. Maybe look into my eyes in the mirror and saying, I love you frequently, like Louise Hay suggested, which is, by the way, a phenomenal, phenomenal practice. And Louise Hay, who was an amazing teacher, spoke about how so many of her clients people would come to her, they have trouble saying, I love you to themselves in the mirror. Like, wow, right? And I mean, I share this so many times on this channel that my spiritual awakening happened because, long story short, depression, father suddenly passing away, yada, yada. But it happened because in the state of just non-resistance, I was guided to Ho'oponopono, which was, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, 4 phrases. Now, there's a deeper philosophy behind it. There's a video that I actually made about it. But the point being that I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I was sobbing. I could not move through. I'm sorry. Because I was like, wow, taking responsibility for all of that. So for some people, it's the I love you, which is so difficult. For some people, it's the I'm sorry. For some people, it's the thank you. And actually feeling gratitude in their life. And this is what we're diving in today, right? How do we feel that love and gratitude even when we don't? And I remember being in that place of like severe depressive episodes where it's like, I don't care. I can't be grateful because I don't care. And there's this numbness to life. And that numbness is actually, it can be a huge catalyst. So this person said, coming back to the question, I notice I sometimes feel uncomfortable doing this, right? Saying, I love you to the mirror. Or I had the thought, this won't work or help in any way. I know this one. This is nonsense. My personal ego's go-to is, what's the point? That's how I know it's like, oh, that's the ego talking. And it feels really real in the moment. Like sometimes even if you notice it, you're just feeling the realness and the depth of that emotion that is really difficult to shift out of it. So yeah, I am open to any suggestions or anything you might have to say about this, or feeling love or gratitude when it feels like you can't, no matter what you think, say, or do. Like I said, I've experienced this, especially in those depths of that severe depression where, people just like, well, think something positive or just get out of bed. You're like, I can't, right? Or when we have that diagnosis or when we have something going on in our lives and we're like, okay, just snap out of it. And you seemingly do these things, or you do these things to fill the void. And it feels like it's working for a short amount of time, but long term, it doesn't. And I grew up around so many people who were wealthy and successful and miserable on the inside, because there's just like, I seemingly have it all. And that's a scary thing when you actually stop and you're like, I seemingly have it all. And all the boxes are ticked off, but I'm miserable. What the hell, right? And to this, the 4 steps, the 4 keys, really. And you can do this in the order that I'm saying. You can do just some aspects of it. You may choose to focus on one of the aspects at a time. All right. So what are these 4 steps? First of all, coming into the body, coming into the breath. I want you to really hear me. And you can't hear me if you're in the mind. You can't hear me if you're in fixing. And this is one of the things we're going to address. So first of all, the key concept, this is for the mind, to understand is that you are not separate from joy, from bliss, from happiness. Like if you actually let go of your thoughts, if you stop buying into the inner critic story, if you drop everything, your default is joy. And this is really important to understand because we feel like we have to fight. Feel like we have to learn how to do this. We feel like it's going to be difficult. It's like, no, you just have to let go. Not like this, like this. If you let go, your default is alignment. Because that God-like source consciousness is part of you. And then there's the mind, right? That's all for survival and how do I keep small and what do I have to do and, threats, right? And acknowledging all these things. And it's a great part of us. It's keeping us alive. But remembering that it's not something to fight. It's not something to overcome, because if you just stop, your default is joy. And now there's a lot less pressure when you understand this, because it's not that I have to learn joy. It's not that I have to work for joy. It's not that I have to accomplish joy. It's not that I don't have to apply for joy and maybe I'm not worthy of it. It just is. That's your default. So coming back, all you have to do is let go of that top. It's like that kind of like the crust over it, the rubble. You have to let go of that. And underneath is just essence. That is your foundation, okay? And that's freeing right there. That is step number one, remembering this on a deep level. Coming into, actually not remembering, just coming into this knowing, right? Just on the mind level. Number two, there's actually going to be something to help you with this. There's going to be a free resource in the description that I'm going to explain later on how to use this powerful tool. Number two, loving the miserable one. I had such a powerful moment with an ex-client when we worked in a one-on-one container, and I asked, why do they want to work with me? And they said, because when I told you that I have cancer, you asked me, do I love it? And that took me back. And yes, that is really what I said. Can it be okay that there's a part of you that doesn't want to be happy? Can it be okay that there's a part of you that's actually trying really hard to make you miserable? In the sense that not for you to suffer, but for you to stay safe. And sometimes it goes overboard. It's like an overbearing mother that's like, don't do this and don't do that. And you're like, oh my God, I can't do anything, right? And that parent may mean well, but is driving you nuts and you can't take control over your life because they're just hovering over you. This is the same with your thinking mind. This is the same with that inner critic. It's trying, right, to support you, to keep you safe, to keep you alive. But because we don't stand in our power, that part feels like it's too much. So whenever we're trying to have these feelings, thoughts, right? Because all feelings come from thoughts. Thoughts of gratitude, thoughts of love, of joy, of freedom, of connection. The inner critic is like, no, it's not safe. Can that part be okay? Because this is the mistake that I see people making all the time. This is what we work with one-on-one clients through in the 3-month container, because this takes time, this takes repetition. And we do the energetic shift, and how do we apply this in the day-to-day? And there's making changes in the person's life. That's why it's a 3-month container. So understanding that it's not something to fight. It's something to love and understand why. Why are you pushing this away? Why does love, let's say, not feel safe? Why does gratitude not feel safe? I know in my own journey, I went through this where it's like, I don't want to be happy. I remember having an Akashic Records reading session, and there was this council of light, and this person guided me, the practitioner, into this beautiful circle where I'm surrounded by so much love and saints and angels and guides, and I broke down crying, saying, I don't want it. Like, really, it felt so unsafe. I'm like, I don't want all this love. I'm not worthy of it. I don't want support. Because it felt like, if I'm supported, it implies getting uncomfortable. It implies being not safe. So many of us have receiving blocks. It's not safe for me to love because I'll get hurt, or it's not safe for me to have this amount of money because I'll lose it all. And then, that's painful, right? I'll feel like a failure, or whatever the reason. There's so many subconscious blocks in regards to receptivity. And yeah, I just can't possibly go into all of them in the video. It's really individual. This is the things that I do in my one-on-one work or in the membership. So loving the miserable one, just understanding that you're coming into wholeness. There can't be any healing done if it's not done from a place of wholeness. What does wholeness actually mean? I want to dive deep into this just for a few minutes here. Wholeness, when we remember who we are, right? The opposite of remembering is not forgetting. Remembering is actually putting together. It's the opposite of remembering and dismembering, taking apart. There's a beautiful myth about Isis and her husband who was dismembered, and she would find pieces of him and bring him to wholeness again. And this is really that story of the feminine within us bringing the masculine, that is like the mind, the separation that the mind is creating within us, and it's bringing the pieces back, bringing us to wholeness. The feminine is life itself, that intuition, that magic, that inner knowing. And don't get me wrong, the mind is so important, right? That's part of the human experience, the feminine and the masculine together, but not losing ourselves in one or the other. So coming into that, what I said, the first step, remembering that you are just love, you're divine, it's natural. You don't have to think about it. Just like you don't think about your every single breath. You don't freak out like, oh my God, if I breathe out right now, will the next breath return? You just know. If you let go of the mind, it just goes into the default of wholeness, is that remembering. And for that to be possible, you have to understand that there are no parts of me to fight. They're all here to be loved. They're all here to be accepted. Okay? Number 3. How do we tune into that love, to that gratitude, to that clarity, even when it's difficult? Step number 3 is clarity of purpose. What is it that you want? This is one that I see so many practitioners getting lost in, people becoming, workaholics because they discover this thing. Oh my God, I have so many blocks. I have to clear them. And then there's childhood, and then there's, previous lifetimes, and then you're never done with it. Clarity of purpose. I work from the present moment with my clients. And yes, there's absolutely regressional work. If it's coming from the present moment, not going back looking for trouble. If we're getting lost in, right, why is this coming up? Because that's one of the things I said in step number 2, right? Understanding, why is this part of resisting? Like, it's not trying to make my life miserable. It's here to protect me. What is this really about? Yes, there is that. And as much as we can go into regressional work, there's also just, wait, where are you going? Because sometimes as we go into the past, go into the story, we get lost in it. And it's really important to do this work in such a way, or work with someone who has these skills, who don't get lost in the story, who can guide you from the present moment, and who can be the observer of the story while simultaneously shifting the story. I remember my first experience with a practitioner when I got into this work was actually a regressional session, and I was good friends with his wife, and I asked, what's the point of this? Because this doesn't resonate. And she says, well, the logic is that when you bring it to light, it dissolves. And I feel like you just keep having more, like the past is created from the present moment. So the mind will just keep recreating stories, making up stories of why you are justified in feeling shitty like you do right now because of these all things that happen. And when those things are clear, it's going to create more reasons. So we're getting lost in a story. And there's a way to hold that part, to be with the mind, to love it, to support it, and understand that you are not the mind, and moving beyond it, and moving in what is it that I want to create, while also being aware of the resistance that may come up and loving that, right? So it's a delicate process. But that step number 3 is clarity of what do you want to feel. So when even we're saying things like, oh, this isn't working right now, or I don't know how to make it work, this is too difficult. Is that clarity of purpose? Are you going towards what you want? No. You're going into the spiral of, oh, see, this is why I can't, because it's so difficult, because I have these patterns, because I just can't no matter what, right? It's like it's like creating those affirmations. Now, one of the things that I want to share with you, it's down below in the description. It's a new free resources that I created that I have used myself, especially at the beginning of my journey. I still come back to it. The four energy centers in regards to the four elements. There's going to be an audio, by the way, sent in the next few days for this practice. For now, it's just a PDF so you guys can look through it, feel into it, see how it resonates with you. Tuning into and affirming statements of power, and especially tuning into those places in the body and seeding those mantras into the body. This is how we ground. This is how we connect to wholeness. And for those of us that was part of the question, right? It's like, I feel like this isn't working or this is stupid. And we're going to get into step number 4. But, this isn't working. Water on stone. Water is always more powerful. I just came back from a beautiful place in Portugal, Algarve, and you can see the water, how it impacted the rocks. And there are these beautiful, beautiful rock formations. But you can see how, rock is solid and strong, and then it's getting so impacted by the water. Okay? So remembering that it doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work. Going back to that inner critic, step number 2. Well, it doesn't work. You're doing this for nothing, right? The inner critic's coming up. Okay, maybe you're right. That's it. Don't fight it. Don't try to prove anything to it. Don't get lost in what it's saying. It is not you. And this takes practice. This is, what meditation practices are about. Just identifying while also maintaining close, loving connection with that part of you. And this is how my teaching, is different than some other teachings, because some teachers see like, no, mind, body, unimportant. And I mean, I've seen in my personal experience that has consequences for the physical body, right? When you reject something, you have illnesses, you have things, struggles in your body. Or, like I said, the other extreme of getting lost in the story of like, I'm trying to please that inner child. I'm trying to, connect to all these parts of me. But it's never going to be enough, because that part of you is wired for not enoughness. And that's the fun of it. And I'm smiling talking about it because that's the fun. Step number 4. Dropping the agenda. This is so important. The question, the way it was formulated, and I love it because this is really real. Like, I was also in this place while telling my teachers, well, it's not working. If you're going into something with an agenda of, I'm trying to get something from you, how is that going to go? Think of a personal relationship. When you're being nice, being polite, being friendly, making jokes with somebody just to get something out of them. They can feel that. How would that interaction go? And this is what happens within us. Again, that's something that I had with so many clients. I remember we were sitting in session, and especially those people that are like, accomplished, let's say athletes or executives, and they're coming to me and they're like, okay, let's accomplish this. Like, but this part of me is going to be gone, right? I'm like, you're trying to connect to this part to basically murder it, to release it so it's not there anymore. So you're coming into this like, okay, I'm nice to you, but I actually want to get rid of you. No. The fun of life, of this experience, is not achieving that enlightened state. They're actually a metaphor that state of enlightenment is like a blade. It's a blade. It's so sharp, so thin. And the whole point is to fall off the blade and then get back on. And then fall off again and get back on. It's not to stay here. That's not the point. This is incredibly boring and unfulfilling, and this is just your default state. The whole fun is feeling the contrast. The whole fun is like, oh, I got off center. I get to hold myself through this. I get to connect with myself through this. I get to have fun. Oh, there's a part of my mind that is trying to make me miserable right now. There's a part of my mind for which it will never be enough. Oh my God, there's a part of my mind for whom I'm not enough and everything I do is wrong. How hilarious is this? Not, why are you like this? How do I fix this? You can't. It's part of you. I get to have fun with this. I get to be committed to joy. I get to be committed to love. I get to be committed to humor, to wholeness, to that remembering, even though my mind is creating that dismemberment. So those are the 4 steps. Number 1, to wrap this up, you're not separate from your joy. Like, that is your essence, remembering that that is your foundation. Number 2, loving the miserable one, the grumpy one. One of the analogies I used to love to use is Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Grumpy is always part of the bunch. It's there. And it's adding fun and humor to the group. Same with your ego. Number 3, clarity of purpose. Where do you want to go? Do not get stuck in what is or the story that you had in the past. Number 4, dropping the agenda. Dropping the agenda. I'm here to have fun. Can you have fun on the way to not getting where you want to go, seemingly? And then you inevitably will, because you are just having fun. Like, that's the whole point. That's the whole purpose. I made a video recently talking about how so many people they're chasing, right? We're chasing the money because we want that freedom and we want to spend time with our loved ones and, let's say, our kids. And then by the time we did it, we're like, oh, it's too late, they grew up. Or we're trying to do all these things like, right, I have to sacrifice myself in order to, maybe in a relationship, or like I can't express myself so that at some point I will. And then we get to, oh, it's too late. What is the whole point? That feeling of gratitude, love, fulfillment, whatever it is that you want to feel, it's not there, it's here. So when we shift, okay, well, I'm trying to say I love you to myself in the mirror in order to actually feel it for a particular end result. Right now, I get to love myself. I get to love the grumpy one, the miserable one. I'm doing it right now. That's it. I'm not going to do it in the future. I'm not doing this to be able to do it. It's right now. So on this note, check out the free resource below, the 4 Elements Energy Guide. I thank you so much for being here. If this resonated, give it a thumbs up so I know. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this. Share this power, because we rise together. And it's so important, especially with everything going on right now, to remember that we create our reality, that we can shift things outside of us through that power of our hearts. Many blessings.